Yeah, I mean, and even to build off that of the developmental guys with the stuff is even like weight room guys, right? Like I think that's on both sides of the ball now as well to build off of your point is the guys that you recruit and it's like very evident and obvious. And I know college freshmen are stronger, more prepared to handle the workload and the strength that's required to succeed in college baseball than ever, right? The access they have to resources and places to develop physically in the private sector is more than it was 10 years ago, which is why these guys are more advanced when they step on campus from a physical standpoint alone. But there were always guys that like the middle infielder who had a ton of bat to ball and you really like the bat speed that he had, but it's more line drive, get it over the infield, fall in front of the outfield kind of hitter. And you're like, this guy could be a dude if we could just put him on ice for a little bit, right? Like put him on the back burner. We'll put him on ice. We'll let him develop. And by the time he comes out his sophomore year, maybe he's our backup shortstop. He plays some utility reps and he gets some good exposure. And then by his junior year, maybe he's even a draft guy if we continue to physically allow him to marinate, right? But now you don't have the luxury of doing that anymore. And I think of that on the pitching side, like, right, we've all evaluated pitchers and like, oh, we called it T-lap, right? Tall, long, athletic, and projectable, right? Like that's it. Those guys aren't even as valuable as they used to be because it's like, okay, great. We think he's projectable, but like projectable for what? Do we even have the time to project it out? Because there's both sides of the coin, right? Is he not ready to perform when he steps on campus? So that's a wasted roster spot. Or B, does he not like us? And even if we think he's projectable, we develop and he's off to another university to get that extra opportunity. So it's both sides too.
And you have to understand how projectable is he. Like, can he? Maybe he is projectable enough, and he's got enough intangibles in there where like a fall gets him to be usable in some form or fashion, and then he can continue to develop. And that's what every coach out there is going to be taking their shot on, right? And the hard part about that is it is projecting, which is why sometimes I get frustrated with even like prospect talk in Major League Baseball because everybody's like, and it happens a little bit in recruiting. You love your recruiting board until you see them at 18 have to play against the 22-year-olds you have, right? And just like in prospect talk in Major League Baseball, every prospect is a guy that you can dream on and is going to be the next, Juan Soto until he makes his debut and you realize how good big leaguers are, right? And like,
Mm-hmm.
so, projecting is really tough, but if you can get him to develop in a fall, then that guy's very valuable. You have to be able to know how to do that. And the thing that I don't want to get lost here too is like, yes, the portal, because I think when changes like this happen, what gets reported the most is like how many guys are leaving, how hard it is to hold a roster together. And, from the outside point of view, the transfer portal is a bunch of guys who have no loyalty anymore, who don't have the patience. But there's also the story of the guys, which I think is so fascinating. And I think it's important to talk about is the guys that, we're saying that fall into this here. It's like the guys who no longer are going to have patient coaching staffs because they need people to develop. You sign at a school that's like a dream, and how important that is for you as a high school, and how exciting it is that you sign for a school and then you go there for a year and you don't develop quick enough, or it doesn't pan out, and you're getting pushed towards the portal. You know, fans of college sports only look at it from the sport perspective. Fans of every sport only look at it from a sport perspective. For some people, having to pick up and transfer schools isn't like fun from a life point of view. And that's just the reality of it. And it's something that doesn't get talked about enough. But like getting pushed out because you have to transfer and pick up your life, you might have made friends, you're comfortable in classes, you just like the school, you like the campus. Like now you have a serious decision to make. Well, do I want to keep doing this? Do I want to stay where I'm at and give up baseball? Where am I even going to go? Who's going to want me? There's a lot of uncertainty in that. And it can get stressful. And the most attention always goes to the top levels. And it does, I understand, it feels like there's no loyalty and it's almost like a money chasing game and things like that. But there is a whole community of people who necessarily don't want to transfer. They're not getting paid a ton to be there. They have a scholarship. They don't have anything. There isn't NIL funds at every school. They're getting told that it's not working anymore. And that's a tough pill to swallow for an 18, 19, 20-year-old person. It is. It's
Mm-hmm.
not a fun position to be in. And that story doesn't get told as much.
Yeah, and I think it's mostly because everybody thinks that it's only the player's decision, right? Because the player's name is the one being entered into the transfer portal. It's not like major league sports where you can know when a player's released, right? Like when a player is released in the NFL, we get the notification saying that the Los Angeles Rams are not renewing the contract for said player, right? Like, and that's obviously a very evident decision from the business side of the, you know, program or the team and obviously the university. But every time a player enters the portal, it doesn't come with the caveat of this player was pushed out. Like you're gonna, and in bigger sports you're gonna hear some message board processed or whatever. But like in the reality is like all people see is all these players that are quote unquote selfish and out for their own entering the portal, because thousands are entering the portal each and every year, and nobody really knows the details, because now a coach, and even a coach with good intentions who got into the sport for the right reason and started coaching as a form of development for young men and being a mentor to so many different individuals, is held to the fire of a 34 cap, right? So if he's held to the fire of a 34 cap, not to mention at the bigger programs, majority of Division One programs, you're basically keeping your job if you win and you're not if you lose, right? Those scenarios that are obviously in place. If they're held to the fire of a 34 cap, they have to make a decision between, is this guy good enough to help us accomplish our goals and to keep me in my position and make sure that the team is heading in the right direction, or are they not? Right. And it doesn't even, like, to me, I think when you really view it from that perspective, there's nobody that's vilified in it. Right. Like, I don't think anybody's necessarily wrong. Right. And that's why I have a little bit more empathy towards players making that decision, because I get it to a large extent, the players at the top and wanting their opportunity to make more financial flexibility in the future. But the reality is coaches, even when they process players, it's part of this 34 cap, right? Like people don't even understand that. Like, yeah, sure, it's a business decision and they had to make a little bit of a selfish decision for their own success and on field. And maybe they made promises in recruiting that weren't held upon getting to campus. And maybe you had thought you were going to have an opportunity, and to a lot of players, that opportunity never came. And that is, venge filled. And you're going to have a lot of people in your corner talking bad about the coaching staff that processed you out. But the reality is if this legislative never came, that decision to get rid of you, which has always been a part, even when we had 40-man rosters, but now it's more evident because it's all public with the transfer portal. But that is now a decision that both sides have to make, where it's like, how valuable is this guy to the 1 through 34? Every player in the 1 through 34 now has to have value in some way.